guys, welcome back to my channel. Today is going to be a bonus video. This collaboration with Tiff from Small Town 6 and Jessica Myros. I could not pass up. It sounded like so much fun. So we are going to make cream cheese French toast and you make it in the crock pot. I was so intrigued by this recipe. I found it on Julia Pacheco's channel. I'll actually leave her recipe down below. It's on her website. I did actually make it a little bit differently. We don't typically buy French bread, but I did have some wheat bread and it was going a little bit stale. So if you make any kind of bread pudding or bread casserole, it makes it taste better. So I'll get into that in a second. I'm gonna go ahead and leave those two ladies' channels linked down below, as well as the entire playlist. Don't forget to watch everybody's videos. It is the season for their crock pot. So back to the recipe. Julia calls for a French loaf. I didn't have that. I used what I had on hand, and I think she used about 12 eggs. My family's pretty small. If you are new here, we have 2 under 4 and it's just me and my husband. So I used about half of the eggs and I did omit the vanilla just because I ran out. So you're gonna whisk the eggs, the vanilla, the brown sugar, and I believe it was about a cup of milk. I kind of just measure with my eyeballs or my gut. And when it comes to the sugar, I think I add a little bit more, a dash of cinnamon. And then you whisk it all together, pour it over the bread, and it's so simple. Originally pulled out cranberries or craisins. We get that bag from Costco. Absolutely love it for baking, but then I found frozen blueberries in the freezer. I typically don't like a ton of blueberries in baked desserts, so I just used a handful. I think the recipe calls for about 2 cups, and the kicker for this French toast is the cream cheese, and the flavor that the cream cheese adds is so delicious. I say it in any crockpot video, every crockpot's going to be a little bit different. Sometimes they're temperamental. You know your crockpot better than anybody else. So I cooked mine on high for about 3.5 hours. Just watch it. Make sure you spray your pan. I totally forgot to do that, and oh my goodness, the dishes were insane. So you can sprinkle this with powdered sugar. You can omit the cream cheese if you're not a fan. I will say it would look 100% better if it did have a French loaf, but with the wheat bread, I honestly did mind it, and neither did my husband. It turned out so good. So definitely something that we'll be adding to our fall breakfast recipes, especially those. I'm gonna love those when it's like Christmas, Thanksgiving, and I'll be in the kitchen all day. The next one that we're gonna be making is a creamy, it is so good, you guys, hearty potato soup. So you're gonna grab 2 celery stalks, and I believe I only used 1 carrot. I sliced these so thin, you guys, I couldn't find my potato peeler or vegetable peeler. So I just did it old school with a paring knife. I do not recommend having the knife shaved towards you. Do it the opposite way, but I've been doing that since I was little. So in the effort of time, I started this later in the morning. So I just chopped everything really thin, and I didn't want anything chunky in the soup. I wanted the vegetables to be there, but not be the star. So I sliced them super thin, put those to the side. I used half of a bag of 5-pound potatoes. I didn't want to use all of the potatoes. My crock pot is a little bit small, so just wash them really well and make sure that you skin them. I like the yellow potatoes. I think they're delicious and they make really good soup. You can use russet potatoes. They are, of course, cheaper and you get a bigger potato. They're not as time consuming, but there is something about using a paring knife and peeling potatoes by hand. It totally reminds me of my grandmother, so it's a very sweet memory for me. Anytime I can do that with a piece of fruit or with a potato, I always remember her sitting at the counter or standing over the sink prepping dinner for grandpa and everybody who was in the house. So back to the recipe. You can use chicken broth, you can use pre-made chicken broth. I use the powder, so I used probably about 2.5 cups, and I just made it a little concentrated. So now it's just to dump everything in the crock pot. I love these kind of recipes, literally dump and go. I don't think it gets any easier than this. So you're gonna put the potatoes, the carrots, the celery, 1 whole can of cream of chicken. You can totally omit this if you don't want to. It is a little heavy on the salt, so I don't add salt. Does anybody remember their grandparents or their mom measuring with the can? Just add 3 cans of water. I promise I do that all the time. So throw some extra water in there, as much liquid as you want. I threw in probably about half a teaspoon of garlic. You're building a little guy with me. He's my buddy. You're building Legos, so probably about half a teaspoon of garlic, a ton of parsley, and we absolutely love pepper in our home, so I threw in probably an entire tablespoon of pepper in here. I whisked it all together. I don't like the congealed soup to just sit in the crock pot. I like to mix it all. So I totally forgot to record, and I added about, I want to say, half a cup of cream cheese and a half of a cup of bacon bits. I love the bacon bits. I don't have to cook the bacon. It's easy for recipes like this. This is about halfway through. I just whisked everything together. If the cream cheese wasn't broken up, I was trying to make sure that it all melded together, and this is how it turned out. Oh my goodness, absolutely delicious. It's so hearty and so savory. You can serve this with crackers, you can serve this with bread. I think it's so filling, you really don't need anything else. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give this video a thumbs up if you liked it, and don't forget to check out the playlist. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.